Swallowed by a snake. A hunter from Hizen province was climbing Mount Matsura to find bait when suddenly the entire sky turned black like lacquer. At the top of the mountain, two lights appeared so bright that they shone like the sun and moon together. Finding it odd, the hunter looked closer and saw that the lights were the eyes of a giant snake. It flicked out its bright red tongue and extended its neck as though to swallow the man. He panicked and tried to run, but the snake easily swallowed him whole. Inside the giant snake's stomach, its heart shone so brightly that it was light like midday, and so hot that it was unbearable. The hunter looked around and saw he was surrounded by corpses. They had only recently been swallowed, as the flesh was still upon their bones, but in their state of decay, most no longer resembled humans. Those unfortunate beings that did manage to resemble their former shape still found their limbs melting into nothingness. Amongst the corpses, the hunter discovered a samurai praying to Buddha. He was crawling around, not yet dead, and he said to the hunter, "Have you too been swallowed? I do not believe we can be saved, but I am glad to have a sword by my side. At the very least, we can cut through the beast's flesh and die outside its belly. What do you say?" "A splendid idea," the hunter replied. "Let's do it." The pair pierced the giant snake's side with all their might, and as they worked their way out, the creature writhed in agony. It was in so much pain that it flung itself here and there, but regardless, the men grabbed one of its bones, large and sturdy like the trunk of a pine tree, and continued digging until they created a hole. The giant snake then died, followed shortly thereafter by the samurai, his energy spent. The hunter proudly crawled out of the dead beast and discovered himself in the middle of the ocean. Hopelessly lost, the man was thankfully saved by a passing fishing boat. But it turned out the giant snake was poisonous, and his head boiled like a kettle. His eyes and nose melted away until he looked just like a nopperabo, that mythical monster with no face. His life was saved, but at what cost? Snake Woman. There was a farmer by the name of Magobe who lived near Kanayama in Bizen province. His younger brother worked in the neighbouring Harima province as a fisherman. Magobe lived a prosperous life with little discomfort, yet he did not have a child, so he often worried about his future. One day, he suddenly took ill, and day by day, his illness grew more serious. He sent a message to Harima, informing his brother that his time was nearing, and his brother rushed back to his side. Magobe's heart was filled with joy at the sight of him as he lay on his deathbed, and he said, "Thank you for coming so far to see me. I don't think I'm going to get any better. I entrust the funeral arrangements to you. Being that I have no heir, I give all of my wealth and land to you. As of today, you can end your barbarous lifestyle and live here, in my mansion." Magobe then pointed to his mistress, standing nearby. "This woman has served me for many years, and we are now husband and wife. Please watch over her for me when I'm gone. I beg of you." His younger brother called a monk, and weeping, they held Magobe's funeral. Magobe's wife was also consumed with sadness and accompanied everyone to his burial. His remains were buried in the earth. The monk held a service for him, and then everyone was about to head home. The woman, however, suddenly approached the mount where Magobe was buried. She circled it 3 times and then collapsed before turning into a giant snake and dying. Everyone panicked, but the monk, looking closely at the scene, said, "Sometimes these things happen. You should bury them together." The people buried the snake with Magobe. The monk said a prayer for her and then held a memorial service. They say that now, golden rain trees grow from that very same mound. Truth behind the drowning. Around 1796 or 97, a man by the name of Wada Kikuemon from Awa province made his way to Edo. He walked around town, applying to various families to become a foot soldier. This is a story about that man. It was the end of June, and the days exceedingly hot. Still in his hometown, Kikuemon went swimming with some friends in a nearby river, but as they rose from the water, they noticed one of their number suddenly missing. They looked for him everywhere, but while they were searching, he suddenly appeared on the opposite shore. Ah, so he's just showing off, they thought, but then his body began to float towards them. Perhaps he drowned. They swam over to him and he appeared to be on the edge of death. They quickly dragged his body towards the bank and pulled him up. Perhaps something pulled him under, one of his friends mused, and they pumped the water from his chest and tried to breathe life back into him, but it was too late. He was gone. There was little else they could do, so the friends discussed his funeral arrangements, and one of them ran to his family temple to organize everything. The drowned man was single, with no family, so they would have to do everything themselves. They placed his corpse in a coffin, bound it with straw rope, and two of them carried it with sticks towards the temple as the sun went down. By the time they held the funeral, the sun had disappeared and their only light was that of the offerings and incense at the temple. As his chief mourners, the man's friends waited, and soon the chief priest arrived with his disciple, and they began chanting and carried out the service. They were just about to start the requiem for the dead when they heard the rope around the coffin begin to snap. Everyone turned to look at it, and the remaining ropes all snapped. The young man inside the coffin suddenly stood upright. Everyone screamed, and a snake crawled out of the dead man's mouth. Everyone watched in horror as the snake, black and roughly 2 feet long, continued to curl around the man before finally disappearing into the darkness of the temple garden. The body returned to the coffin and nothing untoward happened again, and they continued with the requiem. No doubt about it, Kikuemon said. That snake must have crawled up his anus while he was swimming. Jealous snake. A monk by the name of Futo Damao spent much of his time in the arms of a dancing woman and went to visit her often. His wife was an extremely jealous woman, and night and day she wondered what to do with him. It drove her mad, and yet the monk cared not, nor did he stop his visits. On the 2nd day of the 2nd month of the 6th year of the Kencho era, the monk once more spent the night at his lover's place. They lay in the same bed, and as the monk climbed on top of the woman for some fun, it somehow felt like he was sleeping with his wife rather than his lover. That's strange, he thought and drew back, but it was most definitely his lover beneath him. He climbed on top of her once more, but again, it felt just like his wife. Chills ran down his spine and he got off the woman. He didn't know where from, but suddenly a 6-foot-long snake slithered towards him and clamped onto the tip of his manhood. The pain! He tried to shake it off, but the snake bit down harder. He feared that even if the snake were dead, it would not let go. The monk blindly grabbed for his sword and cut the snake's mouth open. The snake died shortly thereafter. The monk's manhood swelled and both his mind and body fell ill, the monk becoming a shell of his former self. The snake's corpse was tossed into a canal, and curious onlookers from all about Kyoto came to see it. I don't know whether it's true or not, but they say that that very same night, the monk's wife took ill and soon died as well.